Bearer of Light, Matriarch of Death is the latest EP from Golgothan Remains, a Sydney, Australia-based death metal band, and one that had kind of struck up a little bit of notice in the late 2010s with Perverse Offerings to the Void, their debut EP, or LP, which reminded me of a little bit of the ulcerate sound of at the time, a little bit of the immolation-esque aggression period, as well as a band like Adversarial for some of the more brutal hits on the drums. It was something that I'd really appreciated. Was like Suffering Hour, it was tinged by the blackened, dissonant death metal side of things, and that was a standout for that year. It was a surprising release that caught a lot of wind, and eventually they followed that up with Adorned in Ruin, a very different record with a different vocalist and a little bit of a different production value. The rhythm section was such a big part and like kind of the exciting part of their first record, and Adorned to Ruin focused a little bit more on a different style of death metal that was maybe more blackened in some sense. So what I liked about that first record returns a little bit on this EP, but they've also just changed in general and focused on a different style of movement, as this is a sound that is meant to represent the concept behind the record, and the concept is an important part of what they're conveying here. So we'll cut to a clip here, and then I'll just talk briefly about what this record is and why it's worth checking out. So you can tell that this band during the pandemic had really worked on a lot of other projects. They'd focused on various things. They put together Sarcophagum, and I think there's a Tenebrific EP out there in the ether, and that means that Golgothan Remains has sort of changed in the interim in terms of all of these things finding their own identities between the different groups. And I think that the big thing that was different about Adorned in Ruin was the new vocalist diction. It was just a little bit of a different sound. And for this EP, they brought back some of the more deeper immolation, like Ross Dolan-esque vocals that are just mixed in there to keep things feeling a little bit more death metal centric and less of the blackened death metal sound. It's a small nuance, but it makes a big difference for this material, which is quite dramatic. Again, ulcerate is a shorthand, I guess, for something that is dissonant, loosely flung in a melodic way, and has a certain type of guitar technique that is ringing and dramatic in the way that it presents itself. And so it is an illustrative form of death metal that it carries into this sound, although I wouldn't say that it sounds as much like that as maybe the Sarcophagum record, which I'll be talking about not too long from now. So there is a distinction between where Golgothan Remains started, how they changed on their second record, and how different this record is. But I think that it's separated enough from their other projects that now all of these things have coalesced to an identity for Golgothan Remains that is theirs, but still has that volatility, and it still has interesting patternation throughout that it makes for an exciting death metal record. So what I basically comment here, and I think what is the general value of this 20 or so minute EP, is that we get a storyteller, we get a narrative out of the band, and they've done well to illustrate that with these dramatic death metal pieces. While they don't focus squarely on punctuative moments, points that sit and dramatically resound in a brutal way, the movement here is exciting enough to where it feels like there's action. There's something a little bit cinematic about the way they presented this, and I found that especially striking as a listening experience. Now, I don't know about the lasting value, and that's just, for me, that is based on the EP format. It is short form, and I don't find myself picking it up compared to most albums, although I do consider this valuable output in parity with full-length quality work that they've done in the past. It is not; these aren't throwaway songs. These don't feel like leftovers or something that was left on the cutting room floor. It is a contained experience and a succinct enough one with a fine art direction, really great cover artwork for this album. Generally, just a high standard. I think that if you're interested in atmospheric death metal that has this particular sound and that touch of dissonance to it, this is a remarkable record and a band that is still very much worth following and seeing what they do next. So I hope that some of this translates into their third full length when they get around to that. And I really appreciated just sitting with this record. I think it's a standout experience for 2024 in terms of short form releases. So check it out for yourself. It released on November 22nd, and read my review for more of my thoughts in general on how this played out and maybe more thoughts on the themes in general.